Janelle, why are you going to be talking about Michelle Obama's book Becoming when everyone on BookTube has already done that like a year ago and anyone who wants to read it has already read it? Why, thank you, but have you considered that I want to? And you don't have to watch this video, Karen. Okay, so Michelle Obama's book Becoming came out like a million years ago and everyone has already talked about it, but I'm going to mention it today, and that is because I really liked it. I listened to the audiobook and I got it through my library after being on the waiting list for months, and I finally understand why everyone is so excited for this book. Michelle Obama kind of has like a cult-like status because she's so incredibly popular, but also there are just as many people who hate her vehemently, and also, I might add, unjustly. So it was really interesting to hear her talk about like the early years of her life growing up as a Black working class girl in the South Side of Chicago, going all the way to like her undergrad at Princeton and then graduating from Harvard Law School and then meeting Barack and falling in love and watching his political career begin and becoming the first Black First Lady of the United States. It was really interesting, and Michelle Obama, aside from like living an interesting life, which is always helpful when you're reading a memoir, because some people who write memoirs just don't have interesting lives. In addition to that, she's also very emotionally intelligent, which makes her book so much more interesting to read because she is very aware of her own feelings throughout her whole life, and she's able to adequately express them and describe like how they changed and how they evolved as she like matured and as her life went on. So that made it like, those are like the classic great ingredients for a memoir: interesting life and also emotionally aware enough to like process it and write about it. And it had both those things. She narrates the audiobook and she does a really good job because some authors should not narrate their audiobooks, but she is not one of those people. So starting from her childhood as like a middle-class Black girl or working class like Black girl in the South Side of Chicago, she really watched her neighborhood change during the course of her childhood because basically anybody who could afford to left for the suburbs, and that obviously created like a lot of change. Neither of her parents had graduated college, yet both she and her brother graduated from Princeton, and she credits that with the fact that not only were many of her teachers really invested in mentoring her, but also her parents placed such a huge emphasis on education and on educational and academic success. And so they they financially invested in her education, and they also did so much to encourage her in that area and to really get her to value that. And she said that made all the difference because later on in the book she says, it was either her or someone else, I can't quite remember, it's not that she was the only smart kid from the South Side of Chicago, it's that her parents really believed in her and really were committed to getting her to succeed for a life that was better than the one that they were living, and that made all the difference. After she graduated from Harvard Law, she took a job at a law firm where she found that she hated her job, and later, and that's actually where she met her husband Barack Obama, and obviously that worked out well. So it was really, I really enjoyed hearing about her husband during the early years before he was famous, or before, like, even when he, like, was just a law student, he was a star law student, and people had great expectations for him, but he was still kind of a nobody. I had never heard a lot about his early life. Like, I didn't know the fact that he spent 3 years after graduating from Columbia working in the poorer parts of Chicago as a community organizer, and I didn't know that he, after graduating from Harvard Law, turned down like a really really financially lucrative job in order to basically make very little money working for a nonprofit that registered minority voters. So seeing his commitment to underprivileged people and to sort of restoring the wrongs of the world was really illuminating for me because I came of age, like, my political awakening was basically during his and John McCain's, like, presidential face-off around 2008. And I remember, like, the phobia, basically, a lot of conservatives had for Obama, and a lot of the conspiracy level propaganda that went out about him, like that he was a Muslim, that he was born in Kenya, that Michelle Obama was a man, all that kind of stuff. And so hearing Michelle Obama describing these events, where she was at, like, the epicenter of them, was really interesting because I remember them from, like, my sort of political adolescence, because Obama was elected when I was in middle school, or elected to presidential office, and he left 8 years later when I was in college. So he was the president during my formative years, and that really left a big impact on how I view the office, and the roles associated with that. So all those current events that Michelle Obama describes, like Sandy Hook, the formation of the Tea Party, her, like, the conspiracy theories about her being a man, like, her infamous, like, edited together quote, or video clip of her from a political rally saying, "For the first time, I'm proud of my country," all that stuff, I remember it happening as current events, and reading about it from her perspective really solidified it as, like, actual history in my mind, and not just, like, the waves of current events that I lived through. Excuse me. You know, it's fall because I'm starting to get sick. So because, just even for that fact alone, I'm so grateful that I read it, because it really helped me process all the stuff that I lived through, and, like, makes me realize how crazy that was, because I was, like, 13 when a lot of that stuff was going on, so I didn't realize, like, how insane it was to doubt the citizenship of a presidential candidate, and, like, how racist that was, because this was, like, the first political presidential race I ever kind of, like, followed, and this kind of, like, awoke my political interest. I also really liked hearing about Michelle Obama's years as First Lady, because as she mentioned, the office of First Lady is, like, pretty nebulous. Like, it's not really defined, so any First Lady kind of gets to do what she wants. So she decided to take a very active role, and she got a lot accomplished. She described herself as a pretty apolitical person, and it's not that she isn't interested in politics, it's just that's not her preferred method of changing things. And so because of that, like, I mean, she's obviously a very intelligent person, but she thinks very differently than people who are traditionally in politics. So because of that, she was, like, a really big asset to her husband's political team, and she was able to get a lot done through, like, non-conventional political methods. I mean, you guys probably heard about her Let's Move campaign to help end childhood obesity by promoting healthy eating and healthy lunches and exercise. Like, going on the Ellen show and challenging Ellen to a push-up contest, like, that happened, like, 10 years ago, and everyone still talks about that, and that video clip has millions of views, and that reached so many more people than just, like, a simple press release would. And so doing something like that generated so much more publicity and so much more attention to her campaign, and because of that, they were able to get so much more done. So, and it's because she's a lot, like, I hate to use this term, like, political elite, because it's, like, because it's such, like, a Republican Party line that Democrats are elite, but I think a lot of people who are in politics, they don't think outside the political box, and Michelle Obama does, and that's why she was able to, like, that's why, like, without wielding, like, an actual political office, she was able to get a lot done. I could talk about, like, her book for a really long time, and if anyone wants to in the comments, please feel free to continue this. But overall, I will really recommend this book because it's well written, it's engaging, it's astute, it's also, like, action-packed. So if you're interested about, like, American politics or about the life of Michelle Obama or about the Obama presidency, I would really recommend this. The hype was kind of, like, at cult-like status, so I won't say it quite lived up to the hype, but I will say that it was very good. On Goodreads, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars, but I think and I was close to giving it 5. But overall, I'd probably give it like 4.5, which, yes, I do give out half stars, and even though Goodreads doesn't let me do that. So, thank you all for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye!